Hello and welcome to Guides.Global. My name's John Howell and I'm the editor, and with me I have Başak Yıldız Orkun, who is a lawyer based here in Bodrum in Turkey. Başak, thank you for being here.
Hi John.
In this very short video we're going to talk about some aspects of family law. We're not talking about divorce because that's the subject of a separate video which people can see if they wish. But here we're talking about the other parts of family law.
Okay.
And we're only talking about them in pretty much outline because you have written a guide to family law, and that's available on our website.
Okay, yeah.
So if you want that guide, download it from www.guides.global, and that of course is the place where you'll also find the divorce guide. So let's look first of all at the situation of people who are not married but who have been living together. And I guess the first thing to say here is that living together outside marriage is not really very common in Turkey.
No, not very common, and it's not part of our legislation properly in the section of family law because we don't want to really encourage people to live together because we still think that marriage is kept traditionally.
But there are two circumstances where it does happen and which are specifically recognised under the law. One is where a person is living with someone and they've agreed that they would marry, but it never happens.
So this is part of the family law, because we would say that that person leaves the other one because of the promissory of the marriage. So and in case of like a failure to get married, or that person could go and marry to a third party, then the other one will be like a suffering, like a mentally or financially. So there is a litigation between themselves. And
do the rights? Let's assume it's the woman who makes the claim and not the man. Could be the other way around. But are the rights of that woman similar to what the rights of a wife would have been?
No, I wouldn't say it's going to be that much wide, because the wife could have a registered right over the assets of the family. But in this case, in asset-wise, it is not going to be protected. So
is it then more an order that the person pays compensation to the other?
Yeah, like a pain and suffering one.
Like a pain and suffering. It's for any loss they've suffered. They gave up work to look after this person, they have reduced their prospects for the future. All that sort of thing is what the rights are about.
Together with, if you lend some money, so if you were like financially covering some of the expenses of the like a partnership, so these all going to be sorted within the
And
course.
so if, for example, the one party put money into the purchase of the home in which you live, they would be entitled to that money back.
Claim back,
or a percentage of the value of the home.
Exactly.
Okay. So, by no means the same as getting married, but at least it gives some redress legally for the person who is in that situation.
Yeah, and what we have in Turkey is, as you know, the religious ceremonies are very common, unfortunately, in the rural area of Turkey.
I was going to ask you about that.
So this is one of the things that's really applying. Actually, it is not a family law, but on the other hand, yes, there is a religious a ceremony which could be proven by the parties. So yet again, the outcome of the partnership has to be sorted by a legal entity, which is the court.
Yes. Well, that was the second example I was going to talk to you about, because I found this one very interesting. In rural Turkey, it is still common for people to get married in a religious ceremony rather than in the civil ceremony. And in Turkey, the only legal marriage is by way of the civil ceremony.
Correct.
The religious ceremony, if you want to have one, is an extra, it's a private affair, it's a blessing, but it isn't a legal marriage.
And as we discussed in our other videos, it is also illegal to get married with a religious ceremony before you got married, officially.
So, imagine a couple in the middle of Turkey somewhere. They've been through a religious ceremony but no civil ceremony. They've been married for 15 years. They've had 6 children, and they separate.
Yeah.
Now, it may be argued that they're not likely to separate because in that part of Turkey this would be a strange thing to happen. But if they did, what rights does the wife and children have?
Yeah, in that case, the period of like a partnership with a religious like a ceremony will be considered. The children of the partnership will be considered. The like contributions of the parties to the assets will be considered. So it is going to be a litigation. It's not going to be a divorce,
yes.
Obviously, and also both parties will be carrying some criminal liability because of the action they enter into.
By getting married religiously before they had a civil ceremony.
Yeah, and at the time of the not marriage but like a partnership, the ages of the parties will be really important in terms of like a criminal yes. Liability part, and it is we wouldn't call it as a divorce, but the effects of the case will be almost the same as yes. divorce. Yeah,
but the orders that the court can make would be much more like the orders in the unmarried couple we used in the first example.
Yeah, it's compensation basis. Okay. The ongoing contributions, as it is not like a wife, so it may not be covered. Yes, the children will be should have like a distribution. I
yes.
mean the guardian has to be given to someone, mother and father. It doesn't yes. necessarily be to be married.
Now the reason I've mentioned all of that is, as far as our foreign viewers are concerned, if they come to live in Turkey and they're not married, they're living with someone, then in the event they go their separate ways, then it is that legal basis that would apply to them.
Yeah, and to be frank, we are having too many horror stories yes. In as your example, because in some cases a non-national women or men come into Turkey, have a partnership with a Turkish citizen, and they never got married, but they're like a civil partners. They bought some assets, but because the non-national ownership is tough to register, they registered under the name of the Turkish citizen, and then everything when they separated, everything is going to be very complex for the non-national yes. person.
And there have been too many cases, haven't there, when
many.
Usually women come and marry Turkish men, marry in inverted commas Turkish yeah. men, and basically the men eat all their assets and then send them away.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you will never recover it if
yes.
the man doesn't have any registered assets in his name.
So you need to be very cautious in that circumstances. And in the interest of equality, you have to say it could be the other way around. It could be the man who was coming and marrying a Turkish woman, but that isn't the way it normally happens.
Yeah. So I think both sided is possible, but you have to be careful about yes. that.
But if you come to Turkey as an existing couple, you've been living together for 10 years back in the United States, you come to Turkey, you live here, then if you separate, the ability of the court to make orders to govern that separation is limited. And so probably some good advice is, if you're going to come to Turkey in those circumstances, maybe a good idea to get married before you come.
Or you can just deal with the scheme of like a purchase or like any assets in the way of that
yep. You must certainly make sure that if you buy a house, it goes in both names. If you buy a car, it goes in both names.
So the ownership structure might be arranged.
And I suppose you could also do some sort of private contract under Turkish law that says, in the event we get divorced, or in the event we separate, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, you can make this agreement, and
yes.
it will be. It's like I think we just think this as a partnership.
Yes.
Between two parties.
Yes,
so
yes.
you are making a decision of how to distribute the assets that you are purchasing,
yes.
contributing each other.
Yes.
So.
But one way or the other, if that's your situation, you need to deal with it. Don't just let it drift on.
Yeah, but the only thing I would say about this, like a contractual agreement way, because of the registration, especially for a property, is subject to an official system, which is land registry.
Yes.
So the land registry will always be binding for the third parties.
Yes.
I mean, that person can sell that property to a third party and you can never recover your property.
Yes.
You can only recover your contribution from the contractual related party. So the official registrations are always beating the private agreements.
Yes. So really, probably the easiest, strongest, safest solution would be to get married before you can.
Yeah.
Yes. Talking of which, we talked about people living together as a couple. Same-sex marriages. We've dealt with this in a separate video. I'm not going to spend much time on it now.
Yeah.
Same-sex marriages not recognised in Turkey.
No.
Civil partnerships in the sense that they exist in other countries not registered, not recognised in Turkey.
No.
So if you're in a same-sex relationship, again, you need to think very carefully about what your options are before you come to Turkey to live.
Exactly. So everyone has to make their settlement before they purchase any assets or get involved in any financial status, and they have to deal with that before they come to
Yes.
here.
Now, the other part of family law I wanted to have a quick look at is children. Paternity, where a woman alleges that a child is your child. How does that work in Turkey? If a woman has a baby and says that it's my baby, how does the court resolve this?
In that case, the mother should be filing a case by being a guardian of the baby on behalf of the baby for the recognition of the father. I mean,
so it's the baby's rights to have the recognition of its father.
Yeah, but the mother can use that right until they get 18. So and there will be a court case in the family courts. The court will make the necessary investigation, DNA test and the others, and as a result, if it's the child of the father, then it is going to be registered as a father.
And these days it's generally done by DNA testing.
DNA test, I think it is 99%
Yes.
Correct, yeah.
And if the father refuses to have a DNA test, then I guess the court will make its own conclusion.
Yeah, actually once a court case about a recognition of a parent is filed, then it is being notified to the government and the prosecutor office as well. So they will be also notified about this case, and if the father is rejecting to giving the DNA, so the prosecution office will be involved.
Okay. So, not really surprising the way those things are dealt with, not very different from the way they're dealt with in many other countries, but at least the audience will now know.
Yeah.
Başak, thank you for that.
Thank you, John.
We hope you found that useful, and of course if you have, it would be great if you would like to like that video or follow this channel. Do remember that Başak has written not only this guide to family law in Turkey, but also a whole range of other legal guides about people who are foreigners living, working and doing business in Turkey, and that she's the co-author of our book, How Things Really Work in Turkey. And you can get all of those via our website, www.guides.Global. We hope to see you again soon, and in the meantime, goodbye.